I like your setup there. It's good. It's got, right. It's not only that's the program that Tom's in. It's for special needs kids. 5 years old. County. My youngest is 7. Ready to go watch tours the other day, the Ragnarok, and so she's taking us home her EIT, which is Valkyrie training. So I'm talking to her, my boss's son.
That way, good evening. Somebody gets overcrowded, you move some 8th graders over there.
Everyone in the back, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, a little louder. Yeah. But I'm not worried about
Need a little more volume?
this part. Yeah. Oh, well, I guess.
Okay, let's try that. Is that better?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Good evening. Welcome to Gambrels. Tonight marks the 6th of our 17 small area planning-based listening sessions and visioning sessions. Thank you all for graciously donating your time to be here this evening. This is a very important process, and we appreciate the fact that you feel that it's important enough to invest your time with us this evening. Tonight's activity is being sponsored by the Anne Arundel County Office of Planning and Zoning. My name is Phil Hager, and I have the honor of serving as the Planning and Zoning Officer. We have a number of dignitaries with us this evening, but I would like to begin by recognizing the councilman from his home district, Council District 4, Mr. Andrew Brusky.
Thank you, Mr. Hager. If you work for Anne Arundel County and are here tonight to be a part of the planning and zoning process, please raise your hand. I just want everyone to see the staff. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you guys for coming out. And I know we have James Kitchen from the County Executive's Office, obviously Phil Hager. Thank you guys for being here. Just real quick, I want to be brief because obviously I want to spend the time on the plan. As you know, Odenton Gambrels has certainly changed over the past 30, 40, we can go on, years, and there's a lot of challenges, but there's also a lot of opportunities. And certainly this is your opportunity for the community, no matter where you live, to put your input in and take a look at what we can do for the future. In particular, I know as this process goes on, I will have my own meetings outside of this process. So if you're looking to upzone or downzone, you're going to have to go in front of the community as well. I've already told any developer, homeowner, that there will be additional meetings that I will hold. Well, you have to explain to people why we should be upzoning or downzoning your property. We'll probably do those at the library or some other place, but certainly I want to let everybody know that this is the small area county plan, GDP, but as we get into comp rezoning and other pieces, I like having meetings on my own so people can ask those tough questions. Again, I'll finish with this. I ask that you read the statements very carefully, write down your thoughts and ideas. In particular with the GDP, and Mr. Hager knows this, affordable and workforce housing is something that the county executive and I are taking a close look at. When you look at Fort Meade and you look at some of the things that have occurred in our area, there's a lot of concerns about the ability for our police, fire, and teachers to live. And I don't know if any of you followed LA or San Francisco or some of those areas, but they are actually having problems staffing people because of that issue. And that's a big issue in our area, because if you can't get people to work, then you have to raise salaries, you have to do other things, and it just becomes a mess. And we're getting to that point where the saturation and other pieces are a problem. And last but not least, and this is a big one of mine, traffic. We had a landfill hearing last night that obviously I came out to oppose and shared, but we have to do something with the traffic. I will say this, we're not gonna get cars off the road by the development process, but what we need to do is look at public transportation and looking at some innovative ideas. I know people talk about bike lanes, they talk about improvements. Certainly State Highway is gonna be under my view over the next 3 years since I'll be there to try and do some improvements to 3 and 175. But we wanna make every effort to push to make some positive changes so that people aren't sitting in traffic, and it's also not a public safety hazard. Because right now I think it is. It's some of our intersections, and it's something that hopefully through this whole process we'll get that. I'll finish with that. Again, thank you all for coming, and thank the staff for taking your time to come out this evening. Thank you, Mr. Hager.
And thank you, Mr. President. In addition to serving as council district, as a member of this council, Mr. Pruski is also the president of the county council, so thank you. He saved me some time because I was going to recognize some of the staff people who are here, so that's great. We can complete that a little more expeditiously. There are a few other folks I wanted to recognize. Two guys who make everything possible here this evening. They certainly make it possible for you to be hearing me. Dave Robinson and Ray Pringle. Two members of our CAC who are with us this evening, Matt Korbelak and Pat Hooker. The chair of the Odenton Citizen Advisory Committee, Andrea Mansfield. So, I get in the car every morning and drive to work, and I make a bet with myself. Am I going to get a good chewing out from the developers, from the environmental folks, or from my boss? And it's always a toss-up as to which one happens first. But it's certain that it's going to happen from somebody. And as my old professor in graduate school used to say, if everybody's yelling at you, you must be doing things right. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but we certainly do try. We are working very hard. And being a planner is a tough thing to do because you're trying to balance all of the different resources and trying to make it all work, and it is a very, very challenging operation. And you're usually the least popular person in any gathering, and I guess we have to live with that. But that's why I have gray hair and I'm only 19. But one of the things that helps make it worthwhile and it makes it a lot easier is having a boss that understands and supports. And we are privileged to live in a county where we have a county executive who does just that. And one of the reasons that we're here today is that he asked us, in addition to our other ongoing community outreach efforts, to hold an additional 17 meetings around the county to make sure that the people had an opportunity to participate in these listening sessions a second time. So we have him to thank for that, and he's been out and attending many of those himself. So it's not just a matter of he puts his money where his mouth is, and he follows through on that. So we're very pleased about that. Unfortunately, he's double booked and could not be with us this evening, but he made an effort to be here because he's here through the wonders of technology.
Welcome to the Planning Department's Small Area Visioning session. I'm sorry that I'm not there with you. I'm making it to most, but there were a few evenings that I just couldn't attend, so decided to do this little video so that I could be with you on the screen. I just want to thank you for coming, because this process that we're going through for Anne Arundel County is probably the most important thing that we do this year, maybe the most important thing that we do during my whole 4-year term. It's the 20-year General Development Plan. And a lot of you said during the campaign, and you said, you say all the time, that we want community-driven planning. And it was 17 years ago that we did the small area plans for Anne Arundel County. And you'll see, or you probably have already seen on the wall, the update that we asked for to let people know what proposals were implemented in the small area plans that your neighborhood did set 17 years ago, and to let you say whether or not you think those are still important. And I know it's difficult to read all that detail on the wall, but I hope you will. It's important to know how you feel about what was said in the past, and to look at whether or not those proposals have been implemented. I also want you to know that I've been listening to what you've got to say in neighborhoods, and the general development plan and this small area visioning is not all that we're doing. We're looking at legislation that's going to give communities, especially when they're organized in groups, a little bit more influence and power over the process of what gets built and what gets developed in communities. So we're working on the issue of standing so that organizations can actually intervene in the hearings and play a role. We're also working on software that will allow you to go on a map and click on a site, a development site, and be able to get all the information that you want about the application and what stage it's at and how to intervene. That's going to be very important. We're going to have training sessions around the county on how to use that software once it's ready to roll, and that can't come too soon. We're also looking at forest conservation bill that will help make it more difficult for developers to take down trees. We're looking at the adequate public facilities laws and whether we can strengthen those for school capacity and road capacity where development takes place. And we're looking at how we do modifications that the developers ask for when their project doesn't quite fit the rules. So we're strengthening the way that we handle modifications on environmental issues in particular. So all of that we want you involved in. It's in addition to the whole general development plan and small area planning process, but it's really designed to sharpen the tools that we have for citizens to be engaged in the process. I want you to also note that this is not your last crack at this, that this is just a visioning session so that we do one check-in in each of the neighborhoods, ask you also about the boundaries of the neighborhood and whether you think it's appropriate, but that after the general development plan is approved by the county council, we're going to start all over again and we're going to do full small area plans after the general development plan. So there will be general principles for the county that I hope you'll be thinking about that will be in the general development plan. One of the things that was very exciting for me was about 3 weeks ago, maybe by the time this video is done it'll be 4 weeks, but we did a kickoff meeting and we had about 2 weeks notice and 240 of you showed up, citizens, to talk about the general development plan. And we brought in an organization called Smart Growth America. And they did a briefing. It was past Governor Glenn Denning who started this, where people talked not just about what we don't want in our communities, which is what a lot of us focus on, but also a vision for how Anne Arundel County can still grow while preserving open space, preserving the natural beauty of the county, and making sure that we have the infrastructure we need before we build all that other stuff. So we obviously in the county have huge traffic problems because we failed to build the infrastructure. In fact, we failed to charge developers the impact fee that would have paid for the infrastructure, especially on roads. And we're working on that. We're working on that in the budget, and we're going to create a new fund for infrastructure, and we have to catch up in Anne Arundel County. I know how frustrating it can be to be a citizen or a member of a community group that's trying to have influence over what goes on in your community. And I just want you to know that we understand that. We're doing everything that we can to make the process more user-friendly, and we don't want you to give up. You need to stay involved, so thank you. This is important. I hope you get engaged. I hope you have fun. I hope you all get along and all agree with each other. And I wish I was there to join you.
So now we have a little set discussion that we want to try to have with you all. We have some issues that we'd like to get your feedback on, and I'm going to try to do my best to lead you through sort of a facilitated discussion of some of those issues. Very good. And again, please feel free if you're still looking to add to the comments at the back of the room or checking out the maps or whatever, and those will be around for a few minutes afterwards when we finish this process as well. Thank you. So, I'm going to walk around the room a little bit and pass the microphone in front of your mouth to see if maybe you have anything to offer or any thoughts. But we have a couple of questions that we would really like to have your input on. The first one is, what's special about the Gambrels Odenton area? Yes, ma'am.
One thing that's special to me is the dairy farm, the open space that provides our community, and it's very important to me that that stay open space and not be developed into housing or even developed into recreation area, just to have it as an open space resource for the community.
Okay, thank you.
I should point out also that Patrick is recording everything that's being said, but tonight's meeting is also being videotaped. All of these sessions are videotaped as well. So people can go back and see what kind of issues we discussed and what things were said, etc. Someone over here had a hand up.
I'm from Arundel Middle and Piney Orchards PTAs. Something that's important to us is diversity. So the schools in the Arundel cluster are a little bit more diverse than some other towns in the county, and we appreciate that diversity. I think it makes it strong.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I moved into the area about 3 years ago, and I have to say I felt more embraced by this community, by a sense of community in the 3 years I've been here, and then a significant amount of time I've lived in other communities. It's just a really good sense of neighborhood and community.
Great.
I'm going to speak for the old timers. My husband was born and raised here, and Odenton is the town the railroad built. We're part of the Odenton Heritage Society, and my husband's president. I'm a past president. We've seen a lot of changes, but what we've endeavored to do, and we need help from the county to do it, is to preserve the history. We were recognized as a National Historic District, and that's been changed considerably. What's changed in 15 years, that has. We have 2 buildings that are on the National Register of Historic Places. One of them is the Epiphany Church, which personally I was involved in getting that on there, along with 2 other people there. And the bank that you see, that's a coffee shop on that west side, that's on the National Register. And our main built museum is the old Masonic Hall, which we are, struggling to get some outside work done on that. We put in for grants, that didn't happen, but we're doing the best we can. But I'd like for people to know about that, because that area that was on the historic district got changed with all the houses they butted up against the railroad track. And that we can't take away. So much has happened that cannot be undone. But I'd like to think that we could stop that, any more of that kind of thing. I don't know where else you could. And I want people to know, when you come in, it's important, I think, what is the history of this place, what's important, and we like to incorporate all of them. If Piney Orchard people do it, whoever, you're welcome, but come and see us and see why it's so important to this county and this area.
All right. Very good. Thank you. Oh, yes, sir.
Okay, you're gonna hold it? Well, certainly Donna mentioned a lot about history, and the history of the Odenton area is very important, and we always need to preserve that. Given that we started as Odenstown after Oden Bowie, that's where our name came from. Certainly very important. What makes Oden different is our location. We're conveniently located midway between Baltimore and Washington, and with the rail line there and the highway access there, obviously we're a very attractive place for people want to live there, and that works for us and against us both, because the rapid growth that we've seen in the last 15, 20 years, which kind of goes to the next question, is really kind of worked against us as much, but because I don't think that the planning has gone behind it. What does that really mean in a lot of facets, and now we're trying to catch up with that.
Thank you.
Can I just add one more thing? You're talking about, you like the community. The fire company has been the heart of this community. He's involved, my husband's a 67-year member there, and we welcome everybody there. It's always been the heart of it, and any support you can give there and appreciation, and know that, we are wanting to get to know everybody, and, and this is a good place to live.
Thank you. Any other comments on what
I
makes?
just want to say with Ms. Donaldson that.
Hang on, Harry. Everybody wants to hear
me.
you. No, they can't.
Yeah, they can. Anyhow, the open house is the first Sunday of every month at 1 o'clock, right at the Odenton
Yes.
Hysterical Society.
Unless it's Odenton Day, when we do it on the Saturday.
On a
But
Saturday?
Only on Odenton Day. Just, we have a website and we
Okay,
also
well,
have.
anyhow,
on
the
Facebook.
first Sunday usually, right?
Yes, exactly.
1 o'clock. So everybody can come up there. There's a lot of interesting stuff there that, especially about trains and about the Odenton area and just some general things that probably a lot of you'd be interested in.
Thank you. I'm sorry, what day was that is the open house?
Sunday, I'm sorry?
So the first Sunday
Unless notified.
of each month
Yes.
is the festival at the
Open house.
an open house.
Changing exhibits, we have one, our museum director has been with the, oh gosh, what is it? In DC, what is the museum? Huh?
Smithsonian.
Smithsonian, he's a member of the transportation there for about 35 or so years, very knowledgeable.
Great. Yeah.
Yes, within the boundaries of Odenton, we have the historic community of Woodwardville, which dates back almost 150 years. I feel very strongly that there's very little left of any historical areas, any green areas left, and I would very much like to see Woodwardville, as small as it is on the map, protected for future generations.
All right, lots of history. Anything else before we move to the second question? All right. So, number 2. We already jumped ahead a little bit, talking about changes, etc. But in the last decade and a half, what has changed in this area? It can be good, it can be bad.
We've been here 18 years, and I live off of Whitechapel. In those 18 years, there are 12 new developments on Whitechapel Road, with hundreds of houses. The PTA has very strong concerns about overcrowding at the Arundel cluster schools. I was the Arundel High rep to the Crofton redistricting, and 2 large new neighborhoods are going into Arundel schools. 1038B, which is the huge 2 rivers, and the Forks of Patuxent, and 1038C, which is a whole group of houses up by the Wegmans and the Target. They're going to pass 4 or 5 other elementary schools to go to Piney Orchard. So the Arundel cluster schools need help. They need a West County elementary school, and they need an addition to Arundel Middle. And that is the biggest change since I got here.
Okay. What else has changed?
Traffic.
Yeah.
I commute to Columbia every day for the last 14 years. It used to take me 25 minutes door to door, and it's now 45.
All right. Anything else? Nothing's changed in 15 years.
It's redundant traffic.
Route 3.
But that was all because of the people in Crawford.
Oh, I'm not touching that.
Sure.
Okay, next question.
Sure, I got one more. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Redundant commercial development. We have a Starbucks for about every 85 people. That's an exaggeration, but we have so many coffee shops and convenience stores, and if you go down Route 3 right now, they just built 3 more convenience stores, and they're all fighting each other for the same customers' traffic, and they're conveniently located at all the major arteries so that they can tie up the traffic to the maximum possible. Thank you.
Anything else on that topic? Okay, jumping to the next one. What needs improvement? I'll come back this way. Anything on this side? All right.
So I am a civil engineer. I'm very familiar with development and what goes on with development in the area. Part of all of the new residential that's been going on is we have the Odenton Town Center overlay that's part of Odenton. And one of the aspects in that is that any new residential development doesn't require adequate public facility for schools. So all of this new residential development that's going in the Odenton Town Center can continue to flood Arundel Middle, which is already at over 100% capacity, and there's no consideration whatsoever to the schools, and that's just absolutely got to change. I know that for a fact there's a sketch plan in right now for over 50 townhouses. We have full schools, and it's not acceptable for what we need to keep our sense of community. Likewise with the redistricting, all of the Forks of Patuxent and Two Rivers kids are going to be coming up Patuxent Road to Piney Orchard Elementary. Patuxent Road is a public road, it's an Arundel County road that floods pretty frequently. We have a Facebook site just so we can see if the roadway's even open. And it will make, I mean, I have young children, I have elementary age children, I can't imagine them having to go out up Route 3 and around. I mean, it's a trip that I've done before. It can take up to 45 minutes, and you're talking about small children on a bus. So, because of all of the development that has already happened, there needs to be significant upgrades to the area, and there needs to be a limit on what can happen in the future.
Thank you. What else needs improvement?
My comments are going to focus really on the Odenton Town Center area and some of the things that we hear in our meetings from people in the area. I think one, obviously the traffic has been mentioned, but definitely improvements in traffic patterns, especially around the MARC station, coming in and out of there, providing extra turn lanes, because that whole area, and luckily I don't come and go out of the MARC train station in the morning and in the evening. I'm coming from Annapolis, but I have driven through there just to see what it looks like, and I know cars do, from what I understand, come out around and make turns from the far right lanes going down the 175, so that is a really big problem, and I know there have been some things to try to address that, but that is definitely something that we hear about a lot. Sidewalks within the Odenton Town Center. It's really hard, you know, we want this, well, at least from the vision from the town center, you know, kind of this workable, walkable TOD area, but you can't get across 175, and if you do, in a lot of places, there aren't sidewalks for people to walk along, so it's really dangerous in those areas. The other thing, because I mean, there are a number of townhome developments going in along Town Center Boulevard, but we hear that there's a really, we talked about a little bit of sense of community here, which I would agree with. I've lived in Piney Orchard since 1998. But you know, we really don't have recreational areas or green space areas going in where families can enjoy themselves, or parks. And it's really hard, the way parcels are set up, to try to find property to create those types of spaces within the town center. So I think focusing on those issues.
Thank you, Andrea. What else needs improvement?
Thank you. County needs to improve. The Odenton Town Center, Crofton area, Arundel Mills, they have all been planned for years and years and years and years. It's on the map. There have been sessions like this that everybody's had a chance to speak at, and traffic comes with development. It's not just here. And it's school problems come with development, and it's not just here. It's what the jurisdiction does to plan for that development. And as a developer, I'm really tired of getting beat up on. You all live in houses built by developers. You work in business offices built by developers. Let's take stormwater management for instance. You can drink out of the water that now we have to create, and they want to make it even more stringent. How much more can you clean water? It's the houses that don't have stormwater management that are the problem, the ones that are built 40, 50 years ago, the farmers that nobody will go after. Right now is probably not a good time, but it's not just the developers. The fees for roads, it's not our fault, the roads. We are given opportunities based on a plan by the county that we're following. It's up to them to provide for that, to make sure there's enough roads, to make sure there's enough schools, to make sure there's enough adequate public facilities with sewer and water, so that we as developers can spend a lot of money to give you places to live, and places to work, and places to eat, and places to do everything else. And a lot of times, the things that you want here don't want to be here. Okay? I've talked to Trader Joe's, I've talked to Aldi, I've had Chick-fil-A in the area, I've had Starbucks. I know there's a lot of Starbucks. You know, I've talked to all these folks. Odenton is a #1 target. So we're sort of second tier, third tier right now. But as the quality improves of the housing, it's just amazing what's going on here. It's we're one of the wealthiest markets in the country, believe it or not, Odenton. 115,000 average household income is just incredible. And that will follow. It took me 5 years, but I got Ruth Chris here. Okay? And that means something. That means that there's something here for them to be here. I talked to Steve the other day. They're doing great. So I thank you for your time. And Odenton's a wonderful place. People want to live here.
Anything else that you want to add to this topic area?
175 it's been like that for over 4 years. 170, I know it's a state road, and I think state road is supposed to come out June 4th. Is that correct, Andrea? June 4th, state road's supposed to come out and talk to the Odenton Town Center people? Yes. Okay, so any of you want to come up to the police station and bang on the door, the state road's going to be here. 175 is a Maryland State Highway, along with Route 3, which is just a total. It's been like that for 50 years, and the planners, who are, I guess, the traffic guys, I don't know what they say. Well, they used the books. Well, the books must be dated probably 1776, I guess, because Route 3, they're still putting stuff. They just cleared an area to put up another strip mall where it's a 2-lane traffic. It's just a total disaster, and we got developers like what's his name there? Yeah.
Let's not get into that.
Oh, why not?
It's okay, Harry. All right, other comments on that? Next topic. So, as we look forward into the future, the idea of being proactive, what do we want the community to look like in 20 years? Thoughts on that topic?
Mr. Pittman said it in the video, the infrastructure has to catch up to the population. That's what the parents and the schools need, with all due respect to the gentleman who was a developer. We do live in neighborhoods that they've built, but we also have to send our kids to schools that are going to be substantially overcrowded. So the infrastructure has to catch up with this population growth, and that's what the next 20 years needs to look like.
You had a comment?
Yeah, just a good mix of commercial as well as residential. We've got a lot of residential here, but along 175, I mean, it's hard to find good restaurants to go out to, other than Ruth's Chris. But
some of us can't afford.
Right. Single parent income trying to live in Odenton, and I promise I'm not making $115,000 a year. But it's hard to find. There's not a lot of good restaurants around here. There's not a lot of reasonable commercial development around here. And 175 is, there's big stretches of it where it's pretty vacant. So maybe incentives to try and pull business in along the 175 corridor where they're, maybe Odenton Town Center instead of putting in more apartment buildings.
Okay.
The preservation of Odenton, downtown Odenton, the museum and the bank building, the areas of Odenton that are historic, I would like to see them preserved and remain historic. Close to my heart is Woodwardville. I have lived in Woodwardville for almost 25 years, and I would like to see there be some sort of focus on preserving what little is left of historic areas, and green space. And I back up to the Little Patuxent River. I would like to see all of that as it is is now at least 20 years or more and beyond.
I'd like to see when we, if we're expanding roads like 175, that we build in a wide path for bikers and walkers that are separate from the road.
That is a barrier.
Thank you.
I appreciate WB&A Trail. Same sorts of things. If we can make that more accessible, I mean, the infrastructure is there. Let's just make sure that yeah, more people can enjoy it.
And also, sorry, just to piggyback on the preservation of the historic areas, the promotion of those preserved historic areas. I didn't realize there was a museum back there at all. Well, very rarely do I ever go back down Pawtuxet Road, so I mean, just my kids would love to go see Tree Museum. That sounds amazing.
We make special appointments if you can't come on a Sunday.
I didn't even know it was there.
Well, the thing is, when they redid the historic district, it changed that. They also made that area commercial and residential, which changed that whole complex. The plats that they had out there weren't accurate. They put it like a whole, you know, it was under one umbrella, the ones, it really wasn't. It was developed separately. I mean, we could go into a whole lot of history, which I won't do. But that changed it forever if they're gonna leave it like that, and they've already done that. I mean, those townhouses were built, we fought it, it didn't work. I mean, not as the Heritage Society, we didn't do it, we did it privately. So, there's a lot that can't be done there, but God forbid that I don't know what else they put in our area there. I mean, it's done, it's a done deal. I'd be very surprised, but let's help what we have, if you will. We just want support, and we want you to be a part of this community and come learn about where you're living.
All right, yes, sir.
A couple of things I want to mention. Number one, that the federal dairy farm be purchased by the county and be used as a recreational park for the entire community, a regional park. Sidewalks on 175 and Waugh Chapel, so obviously people can walk to shopping centers and other things. But in addition, working closer with Fort Meade. What hasn't been mentioned here is a lot of the development is Fort Meade, and that's been a positive thing. Obviously, NSA and some of the cyber command activities that are expanding, but it's a challenge because it puts traffic and other things on roads, but working close with them, because one of the things that they don't have is an indoor pool. Our veterans do not have an indoor pool in West County. And one of the things that I'm trying to push for is a West County swim center that could be used by Fort Meade, our veterans, our seniors, so they could obviously do aquatics and other activities, and even our youth. I know a lot of people have to drive to Annapolis or North Arundel. So when we talk about recreation, we not only talk about parks, but we are looking at things that provide a wide range of facilities. And I'll finish with this. Also, some type of bus service that gets traffic off the road that's current, but also new. Whether it's car sharing. I know one thing in the West Coast right now, and some people don't like it, is scooters, to get around. I mean, we got to think outside the box, folks. You can't just think, in the car, because if you sit in front of Fort Meade, you see one person in a car. So what is the way that we can incentivize people to get out of their cars? Let's be honest. The insurance companies now, you can actually put something in your cigarette lighter or charger, and they'll see how fast you go, and you get a discount. So what is it that we can do to ask people to get out of their cars or ride with somebody to do that? I don't have that answer, but it's something to certainly look at. And I also think we do need a parking garage at the Odenton Town Center. Whether we like it or not, the capacity's grown. We can get into debate about that, but that's the vision. Thank you.
Can I piggyback on what you just said? Funny, I just heard Chris Core on WTOP talk about the scooters recently. The thing we have to think about, though, is where are they going to be? They can't be on sidewalks because that's too it conflicts with pedestrians, and they're not quite bike lane, traffic kind of things. But it's just something to think about. But I do appreciate you bringing that up.
I can say it out loud. I'm not sure everybody's aware that in the center of the town center core at Pepper Gate, there's a pedestrian and bike entrance Does anybody know that? So I just wrote a blog. So it's right where the salt dome is. It's on the property. There is a gate there that's closed. If you have an ID card that gets you into any of the gates, you can access it. The door closes. Once it's closed, there's a second gate that you can access. So if you walk and you bike, you can go through there. So again, when we're trying to utilize things that are available in the area to us, that's something that's available. So as the weather gets nice out, great opportunity rather than using the car.
All right, last call for comments on this topic. All right, well folks, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to come here this evening to be part of this process. If you're looking for more information, if you want additional comments, if you want additional opportunities to provide comments, our website is on the screen here. I would encourage you to make use of that.
Share it with your neighbors.
And as Patrick said, share it with your neighbors. And we're always available for calls, contacts, questions, etc. So please help us to help you on this. Again, thank you for coming this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.